Yeah, mate. So I invited you to come on here because I listened to you talking about your journey and the stuff you've been through, and if you've seen anything that I've done, it's what I want to do is speak to as many people as I can, and
Yeah.
just listen to their story, and if that can help me or can help other people with what they're going through, then
Yeah,
that's the
absolutely.
name of the game, I guess. So, I mean, if
Absolutely.
you just want to introduce yourself, really, mate, is where you're from. Growing up, we'll start from when you were a young lad, and we'll just work our way up to the present day, really.
So yeah, I'm Rob. I'm 54 today. It's my birthday, so
Oh,
and
happy
I
birthday.
currently live in yeah, it is, yeah, 54. The big yeah, I feel old. Um, yeah, I come from Windsor. I live with my wife Liz. Yeah, childhood wise, it's funny because when I went into rehab, I was asked to do my life story, and that was quite difficult. A lot of people
Yeah,
found it difficult.
yeah,
um to be able to go right back into your past, and think of everything and come out in a meeting full of, a room full of people of like 12, 15 people, and tell them your life story, and every little detail. It was quite difficult,
yeah,
um but it was interesting because the therapists there were able to really find trauma that was way back in my childhood that I hadn't really realised, and I'd locked
yeah,
away.
yeah.
You know, um, I went into the fire service when I was really young. I was about 18 when I first joined, and I did 10 years.
I did 5.
An 18-year-old, it's like going into the army. You see a lot of stuff. Um, so they reckon there might have been a bit of there might have been a bit of early trauma there. Because it was typical back in the day in the fire service. You'd go out and then you'd have a drink and just
Mm.
put it aside and just get on with
Yeah,
it and go and wait for the next job.
yeah,
Um, but I was never a heavy drinker then. It was just normal drinking. What I consider normal drinking. Um, and then I had a younger brother who passed away at the age of 20, and I believe that's really where it started. Back in the day, in like the 80s, like you didn't have, there wasn't support for me. There wasn't that, counselling. My mum, I spoke to my mum a little while back about it, and she said to me like, we should have put you through to counselling.
mm,
And I never thought about it at the time. So all this came out in my life story, when I was in rehab, and they said to me like, "You got childhood trauma," And then when I listened to other people's stories, there was tales of like child abuse, and and it was, you could see it. Everyone had that big similarity in what was, in their lives. Um, and then I've always been a drinker. But I always considered myself a binge drinker. I could go a whole week and then go like, a weekend, just really go for it. Um, and then I just started to drink a lot more, and it's like going up a staircase. I just gradually started going up and up and up and up. Um, and I could quite easily buy a bottle of Jack Daniels and just finish it off. Um, and I say towards the end, which is one of the reasons why I started doing my TikToks and my journey of sobriety and recovery, is because I was in such a bad way, such a bad way. I had a lot of stress at work. I had a lot of issues at work, and that was like started about just over about a year and a half ago. Um, and it just it was just my way of just forgetting everything and my relief. Alcohol was, it was my best friend. Um, and I would quite easily do like a quarter of a bottle of whiskey, and then the next day go to work. So I considered myself a functioning alcoholic by that time. And then I went off sick, with mental health, um, with anxiety and depression, and drinking and that as well. That none of them go hand in hand. Um, and then I really just hit my rock bottom. I was at the stage where I was drinking a litre of whiskey a day,
yeah,
easily a day. You know, I would start on it when I was off work. When I was off work, I would hit that sort of like, you know, limit about 2 o'clock in the morning, pass out, then wake up again at 5 o'clock, shakes, and just needing a drink, you know, and then starting again. And that was just a daily thing for the last 3 months of, you know, before I went into rehab. Um, found on the pavement outside my house where for whatever reason, I went out. I think I went on outside my house to go and knock on the next door neighbour's dog to stroke his dog. You know, and I'm found on the pavement, passed out, and I've got people from all over the road rushing. And my poor wife, who was at work because she works at NHS, she's looking on the CCTV camera, watching everybody, you know, from her phone at her place of work, which is about 40 minutes away, looking at me collapsed on the road, you know. And I just thought, like, I need help. I desperately, desperately need help. I'm not going to survive. I'm not going to survive. So yeah, I went to the doctors, and she said, you're definitely an alcoholic, but I can't prescribe you anything. You know, it's got to be done by a drugs and alcohol treatment centre. So she referred me to a treatment centre in near Slough, and they said they would take me on. I could go to rehab, but it would be about two and a bit month wait. I knew I couldn't wait that long. I could honestly say I think I would have been dead by then. The amount I was drinking, and I could see that, you know, after 3 hospital visits, I wasn't going to be around. So, you know, luckily we had some money saved up to do the roof repairs, and yeah, I booked into private rehab, a really good rehab, um, and got the help. Went on the detox for the first week, and then I took the 28-day plan that they did, and did the therapy sessions and started the steps, and then yeah, and that's really it, really, from where sort of I've started, you know, my journey. Um, you know, I'm continuing going to the AA meetings, which is really important. I'm doing my steps. I'm on step 3 at the moment. And I've got a really, really good sort of like network of support of friends, because that's something that's really, really important. You do need that massive network of friends. You know, I met up the other day on Saturday, one of my friends that I met in rehab. And you know, she's doing well, you know, and I've got others that are doing really, really well. And it's just it's life has changed so much for me, so much, you know. And as I say, I do my TikToks now, and it helps me. It helps me in my recovery, and I'm helping other people. The amount of people that have gone into rehab and stopped drinking because they've seen my videos, you know, and it's so inspirational to know that I'm doing that, you know. Um,
I
but
think,
yeah, that's
yeah. So listening to that, there, I think I've done the best part of 20 episodes now, something like that. I've been involved in a couple of men's groups where there's been a lot of people struggling with addiction, alcohol, and things like that, porn addiction, all sorts of stuff. Um, I'll give you a little bit of insight into me and why I'm doing what I'm doing. So, where you say there about childhood trauma, I had a lot of it. I was abused as a kid multiple times, multiple ways. Um, and as a young council estate lad, you think it's normal to be treated that way, you know? And so, yeah, I went through my teens a very insecure, introverted type of person. Uh, 18 years old, 19 years old, I was introduced to drugs and alcohol. Everybody does it, or everybody did it where I lived. My family did it. Some of my family did it. And, you know, you class it as just normal. You know, this is the life that we live. And, you know, because we're sort of lower end scale council estate people, this is the way we live, this is the way we act, this is the way we speak. And yeah, that was sort of my mindset growing up into early adulthood. And I had my son, my son when I was 19. I'd like to think I've always been a very good father. I kept sort of my madness away from the children, or I thought I did. And then I probably spent the whole of my 20s working. I come from a working class town. So I had a job, I had a mortgage at 19. I had my daughter at 21 or 22. It's 22, 23. I can't remember now. Yeah, I was married early, 21, 22 married. And I just sort of spent the next 10 years living that life, drinking, look after my family, go out on the weekend with the lads, take drugs. And it was only until my breakdown, I suppose, during 2020, 21, 22, during the pandemic, that I realised that, shit, that you're a very broken individual. And
Yeah.
I had a complete mental breakdown. I classed my grandparents as my parents for a long time. I held a lot of resentment towards my mother and father for certain reasons that I've gone into many a times. My father was never round. My mum sort of used me because I was the eldest, and I reminded her of him. Maybe she took a lot of her frustrations out on me. And it was only after I took a cocaine overdose. I took £1,000 worth of cocaine in one night on purpose in about the space of an hour or 2 hours. I don't know if you've heard of Zopicon tablets, sleeping tablets.
Yeah.
I took 10 of them. I think it was 10 or around that, just a big handful. And I thought, this is it. I'm just going to end myself. I couldn't come to terms with the fact that I'd lost everything in life. And I sort of looked at myself as this horrible, disgusting individual who'd hurt a lot of people over his time. And I was left with nothing. At one stage, I had a lot of materialistic things, which at the time meant something to me, which they don't now. And I couldn't come to terms with the fact that I felt like I'd failed in life. I'd almost become my parents. And I tried to end my life. 2-3 weeks later, fate kicked in. I met my partner, met my girlfriend, and I've spent the last 2 years growing a lot, learning a lot, making a lot of fucking mistakes. But I'd like to think I've learned more in the last 2.5 years than I probably have in my whole life. I didn't go to rehab out of my own conscious choice. But from what you've just said there, I was very similar. I was a very self-destructive drinker, so I wouldn't drink for a week or two. And then I'd drink 2 or 3 litres of rum in a night and get absolutely paralytic. And then, drugs would be involved, and I'd just self-implode, really. And then I started speaking to a therapist. My girlfriend she works for the NHS as well. She's a district nurse. I was actually a firefighter for 5 years. And it was through the help of my girlfriend, my therapist, a lot of like-minded individuals that I've learned to really grow and really understand as to what my issues were, what my traumas were, and sort of break those barriers down and break those traumas down. And in doing so, I've learned to become a far better person. I'm studying neurolinguistics at the moment and cognitive behavioral therapy and lots of different subjects just to do with the brain and how the body works. I've always been into sports, lifting weights, nutrition and things like that, which is beneficial as well, obviously. But I didn't understand how I worked, why I was thinking the way I was thinking, and it was those limiting beliefs that kept me where I was. Your past becomes your future if you don't fix your past. And that's what I was doing. And I've really broke those barriers down over the last 2 years. And if I'm being honest, I feel fantastic, I feel powerful, I feel strong, I feel mentally like I could just... it's difficult to explain. I'm sure you'd know what I mean, but
yeah.
So with the story, that's my story, really, where I am. With your story, I just want to try and sort of segregate what you've said and sort of what's the word? Decompartmentalize it.
Yeah.
So you said that there was people that said that you had childhood traumas, but you didn't know what they were at the time. So what would you say they were, and how have you sort of overcame those obstacles?
Well, at the time when these events occurred, I was that type of person that just put things into the back of their head or just filed. I see it as a filing cabinet. It was something we was taught. It was something we was taught in like the fire service as well. Like when you went out on jobs, you had a filing cabinet. You just put it away.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I pretty much did, and I've done all my life up until now. I've just put all my problems and issues, tucked them away. And I think with the drinking, I think it was with the drinking that it used to come out. And
Yeah.
these used to flood me. I used to sit there. Sometimes I'd cry,
Yeah.
because I was very much, like I say, I wasn't a social drinker in the sense of going out into pubs and stuff. I was a home drinker.
Mm.
And I would be on my own. My wife would go up to bed and leave me. She knew I was going to get drunk. And
Yeah.
I'd sit there and I'd reflect on these. And all of a sudden, everything would open out. Um, and it wasn't until I was in rehab with a therapist that, they said that that there is something that you've never addressed, you've never dealt with. There was I mean, and I had relationship problems for years and years. Um, you know, my boys, I've got teenage. I've got two grown-up boys now. I haven't seen them in a good 10, 15 years. That relationship, for whatever reason, whether it was alcohol, I lost that. And I've always had that in the back of my mind, and I'm only slowly, I speak to my eldest son, who lives in Singapore, and we exchange an odd text message every now and again. And he's married himself now and he's got his life, and I'm thinking I've lost all of that and all that. I'm never going to get it back. So that was always playing on my mind. Um, but one thing I learned and how I'm dealing with things now is obviously like the alcohol. It just fueled this,
Yeah.
and I was told like you've got to stop locking things away and don't. You can't keep looking back on your past, but you can't shut off your past, if that makes sense. And it took me a
Yeah.
while when I came out of rehab because I was like, I can't go back in my past because that's gone, but I can't shut it out either. And it's
Mm.
really just about addressing everything.
Yeah.
And I've tried to build my relationships with my children. I've accepted that in the past that I've done things, and I'm not beating myself up over it anymore. And
Mhm.
I honestly believe this, that not drinking the alcohol isn't is able for me to remain focused more, and I can
Yeah.
think straight again.
Mhm.
Um, and when I do my live casts and talk to people, my videos, so many people agree with me, and for me it comes out like, because I obviously speak from the heart, and I just say how it is, and people agree with me, so I know that people are feeling the same thing and they can relate, you know. Um, but I have certainly since, I'm 3 months sober today, just gone. I'm about 110 days now. And my mind's never been better. I can address and deal with things daily without issues. Um, I'm able to think more straight. I'm able to, my stress levels, I'm still off work. I am planning on going back to work. And I've addressed this, like I need to address my stress at work because that was a biggie for me in the last, before I had my break, my breakdown, if you can call that.
Mhm.
Um, and I just need to learn to stop doing some of the things that I've done in the past, and I've got to stop people pleasing. I've got to stop, like just like wanting to be not the center of attention, but like, look, I've done this and wanting praise for it all the time. I've just got to step back from it all and just take life a little bit more easier. And I think over the years as well, I've been very hard on myself. I tend to like want to be the best at everything, and to be honest, I I wake up every morning now and I'm so happy, so happy. I've never felt better, never felt better. You know, it doesn't. They're not today. You know, it's my birthday, um, but I look forward to so many small things now. It doesn't matter if it could be going shopping. It could be this podcast. It's just I look forward to things now because I'm not hungover. I'm not got that
Yeah.
anxiety running through me, going like,
Yeah.
oh, I just need a drink. You know. Um,
What it
so
is
hopefully
is
that answers your question in my way of
yeah.
thinking.
I guess what you're saying there about enjoying life at the moment, the one thing that I found with being sober is you're a lot more present in your day rather than just breezing through your day waiting for the next drink or the
Absolutely.
next line or whatever. The one thing I've really I'm beaming with at the moment, so I've changed my diet completely. I only eat now meat, fish, eggs, and cheese and water. I'll have a little bit of sugar-free lemonade every now and then, and I'm waking up regular 5:30, 6 o'clock every morning, full of energy, ready to go. Um, I'm
Yeah.
very present. My awareness, I'm very present as what needs to be done. Don't get me wrong;
Yeah.
it's nowhere near complete, but it's getting from where I was, let's say 2 years ago, where I'd go and drink on a Tuesday night. I wouldn't come home till, let's say, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. I'd stay in bed then all day, all afternoon. I'd wake up, I'd have a takeaway for dinner or tea, and then I'd lie back in bed all day, and I'd be complaining, oh, I'm depressed. What's wrong with me? Well,
Mm, mm.
and again, I've mentioned this on another podcast, what Jordan Peterson said. I'd imagine you know who Jordan Peterson is. He's
Mm.
a clinical psychologist. So he said, we tend to say a lot of the time, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Why is it me? Well, you could sit at the end of your bed and you could write all your problems down on a piece of paper. We know what's wrong with us. We're just not
Yeah,
willing to address those issues. Like
exactly.
if you're lying in bed and you say, what's wrong with me? Well, probably the 2 liters of whiskey you drunk the night before. That's probably what's wrong with you at the time. Um,
Yeah, I
but
absolutely
yeah,
agree with that. Yeah.
yeah. And I guess, going back to what you say there, um, your traumas and that you hadn't overcome your traumas. And like I said
No.
before, if we don't overcome them and learn to understand them, then your past will always be your future. It's just a circle, 360 degrees. You start where you finish, and you finish where you start. Um, and it's only really where we sit down. I sit down and have a look in the mirror. And I had to really address the darkness that was going on inside of me. And then once I've learned to understand those things, uh, I've really, the light shines brighter now than it probably ever has.
Absolutely.
Um, you mentioned, and I'm not sure, you mentioned about your brother passing at 20,
Mm.
and you said that affected you a lot, and you said that's sort of where you more the drinking. Have I gone off?
You've frozen a little bit.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah,
We're
you're
back.
back.
Yeah. So you mentioned that, and that was where your drinking became more apparent, shall we say? Um, was it genuinely were you genuinely just blocking out the trauma of losing your
Yeah,
brother? Yeah,
yeah, yeah. My mum was the same. And she, like I always remember it so well that night. My brother was at home. My mum and dad wanted him to pass away in his bed. There was nothing that could be done. She didn't want him going to hospital. Um, and I just remember just sitting there. Always remember I bought my dad a bottle of Jack Daniels for Christmas because he passed away in the February. And I remember opening it, and I remember my mum waking me up about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, saying, she like touching me, grabbing me to come upstairs because my brother was passing away. And I looked at the bottle, and I'd done half a bottle, um, and then I went on, and I was in the fire service at that time as well, and I had that sort of kind of death wish about me as well, where I just went off the rails. I just didn't care, if I died, I died, nothing mattered anymore. It was a great loss for me. Um, losing my brother like that. And it's taken me a long time to come to terms really towards, about it. And I think going into rehab, coming off the drink finally, has made me so much more clearer in my way of thinking about things. But yeah, that was certainly the start, I mean, because up until then, I was in my 20s then, so it
Yeah,
was like your typical sort of like, older teenage years, getting a bottle and having a bottle with your mates,
yeah,
but
yeah.
nothing nobody's not done before. Um, but yeah, I mean, people say, don't they, that we're often like with this obsession of the mind, but we're wired and we're born addicts. We
Mm,
just don't know it. I don't know how true that is. I've never really looked into it closely. It does interest me to know,
mm,
are we actually born, addicts? I'm adopted, and as far as I'm aware, I don't know much information about my adoptive mother. But I think she was a drinker. Was it hereditary? I just don't know. Could I have stopped it? Or was this what always going to was this always going to happen to me? I don't know. I don't know. It is very interesting. The psychological side. And you hear it so many times, don't you? When people say like about addicts and the drug addiction and alcohol addiction, it's an obsession of the mind. It's not the drink you're addicted to; it's an obsession of the mind. You know, like you said, like I went to a meeting the other day, and there was a guy that, it wasn't just drugs and drink; it was, it was sex as well. He
mm,
was addicted to that.
mhm.
And like I sat there thinking, like, how could you be addicted to that? But then I thought, well, you never thought you was going to get addicted to alcohol, Rob, but you did. Um, so yeah, it's very interesting, very interesting.
I've
Yeah,
spoke to people with all you know, my addiction was sort of drugs, alcohol, but with drugs and alcohol there comes the porn addiction, the internet addiction, and all this. Like you said before, and I was pleased that you said it because it's the exact same thing that I did. I was the center of my own universe. I had this big ego that the world owed me a favor. Um, so I just felt like I could do what I want when I want and didn't really give a fuck who I hurt in the process.
yeah,
Um, and that's when it comes to being an addict, you're talking about the hereditary aspect of it. I've looked into a bits of it. I'm certainly no expert, but this is the type of stuff that I listen to day in, day out. So they say that there is certain types of trauma that can be genetically coded into our DNA from our parents and their parents and things like that. So, like I said, my father was, you know, like a lot of people, took drugs. He was a skinhead in the 80s, or dressed like a skinhead. So he was into sort of the punk rock type era, and everybody took drugs. They all
yeah,
did. My mum, um, she's a good person, but she loves a good argument. um, so I'd like to think that the dramatic aspect of my mother and the wild sort of free spirit of me dad, if I'm putting it nicely, is blended them together and created me. And I've got, or did have, I don't want to say got because I don't like the affirmations of what they bring anymore. I like to use positive words when I speak. Um, but the crazy punk rock version or skinhead father and the dramatic argumentative mother instilled that into me with my own personal character, and
mm,
it shows though, because I loved a bit of drama. I loved being involved, being nosy, and being involved in other people's business. And then as soon as you put an alcohol in my hand, I was like a grenade going off, and I'd just go into absolute berserker mode. And just
yeah,
drink till I dropped, basically. So I believe there is an aspect of that genetic hereditary installation in us, but from what I find is it's these societal beliefs and like I said to you before, I'm a council estate lad, so there's council estates all over Britain, and a lot of people think, well, this is us forever. This is the way we're going to live our lives. We'll just work. We'll go to the pubs on the weekend. We'll take drugs, or we'll do whatever. And society sort of encapsulates us in that mindset. you're either lower class, middle class, or upper class. I mean, what does that mean? It's because somebody's upper class, that means they're better than me because they've got more money. That man could be an absolute prick of a person. But does that mean that he's better than me? And it's just, do you understand do you know what I'm trying to get at? That societal construct
This,
that,
yeah, I mean, this you've hit a really good point there, because obviously, because like when I was in rehab, we always I I had naively always had this concept, this thing in my mind, as many of us did or do, of an alcoholic or drug addict is someone that's on the park bench, or they're, or
exactly, yeah,
wherever they are, or I can't relate to the drugs too much, because I'm fortunately for me, or luckily for me, I never did drugs of any kind apart from the
yeah,
odd spliff. But um, the people I met in rehab were CEOs of big clothing shops.
yeah, yeah,
Singer. There was a singer there. You know, it wasn't just and that's it. Just opened my eyes. I went
mm,
in there and I just thought, this is not what I expected.
yeah,
I thought I was different, and then now all of a sudden I've got these guys that are talking to me, and they're like older than me, and they've been really successful in businesses, but they're alcoholics.
yeah,
You know, met a great guy in there. Um, done like his massive like video game designer, and he was in there. Um, it opened my eyes, and just like the class system doesn't come into it, does it? Wherever you're from,
no,
when it comes to
yeah,
alcohol,
yeah,
look at the rich and famous. Look at, I mean, it was only yesterday. I
yeah,
was I was really intrigued to find out just how many of the rich and famous and actresses that are ex-alcoholics, and they're in recovery. And look at the money they've got. There is alcohol. It doesn't matter who you are. Whether you're on the park bench, or
yeah,
you're or royalty. You
hmm
know,
yeah.
um, it doesn't
I
discriminate.
I went to whereabouts are you? Where did you say you're from? You're down south, aren't you?
Yeah, so I'm in Windsor. I live
Okay,
near Windsor.
okay. So I'm just outside. Do you know where Chester is?
Yeah, yeah,
So I'm just on the other side of the Welsh border there. So you can't tell I'm Welsh by my accent. We sound a little bit mank, a little bit scouse. But
yeah,
anyway, we went to the I went to the Priory in Manchester, which is one of the best rehab centres in Britain. And I had that sort of outlook myself, going there thinking, oh, well, I'm not an addict and I haven't got mental problems and all this, and I'm going to feel better than everybody. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah,
I got there, mate, and there was Bentleys, Ferraris, Range Rovers in the car park, and I was like, wow, what's going on? And then I walked in, and it was like there was millionaires, and I was like, bloody hell, these people are struggling mentally. And
mm,
that was again my realization that mental health doesn't care who you are. Alcoholism, drug abuse, gambling addictions, whatever your addiction may be, it'll grab it. Doesn't matter how much money or how high profile your name is. It takes everybody the same way. Every single person.
yeah. I mean, I think the only difference is with people that have already got the money, have got the funds to do it, whereas probably people that are lower down the scale will turn to crime and to
Yeah.
get the money. But
Mm.
it just doesn't discriminate. You it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It will stop at nothing, whoever you are.
I
Um,
think I think if if I did have the money, I can laugh about it now, but I'm being deadly serious. If I did have the money, I'd have probably been dead 2 years ago, and that's not no joke. I'd have been dead.
no, no, I believe it. Yeah,
Um, and it's quite. I laugh then, but then I've got this saddened feeling deep down inside me that looking at what I'm doing now, and it's been difficult to give myself a pat on the back. It's been really difficult, and I'm sure you feel similar or the same way. It's really difficult to give yourself any self affirmation or a pat on the back when we've done so much wrong in life or we've made so many mistakes in life. Um,
yeah,
but like you said before, I do now, and I get goosebumps thinking about the good that I'm doing, and I will say the good that I'm doing, because if I can change one person's life, then that'll do me, or help change one person's life, not change it,
yeah,
because the only person that can change is us.
yeah,
We can listen
yeah.
to everybody talk about everything, but until we're ready to change, we won't. Um, I was just I was thinking about you went to AA. Now, I don't really know much about AA because I've never been to it, but I've heard a
Okay.
couple of debates online
Hmm.
between a gentleman who was, I'm going to say a sponsor. That might be the wrong word, but I think that's the right
Yep.
word. He'd completed he was drug anonymous though, but I'm assuming the
Yep.
steps are very similar or the same
Yeah.
steps. Um,
Yeah.
and he was having a conversation with a guy who was a drug and alcohol sort of recovery coach. Now,
Hmm.
this coach, had, I think he'd relapsed a couple of months ago, and he was honest about it. You know, he said I've relapsed myself, and they were sort of having this back and two conversation as to this guy shouldn't be a drug and alcohol recovery coach because he's relapsed only 3 months ago. And then the other guy was saying, sort of, well, you've not been through the 12 steps. You don't understand what it is to actually be in recovery. And I was sort of sat on the fence with this conversation because I sort of agreed with both sides, but then I
Hmm.
also disagreed with both sides because even though this guy had relapsed 3 months ago, that guy was still being a change in somebody's life, whatever that may be. He was still helping somebody be better than they were yesterday. But then on the other side, I think, well, does AA or CA or whatever type of anonymous it is, do they give is it a specific set of tools that work, or is it a one-way method and it's the only way that works? Because, like I said to you before, I've never been to AA or CA or anything like that. I went to the Priory for one therapy session and I never went back because, again, I've said it before, but the doctor wouldn't even look me in the eyes. I just felt like a number rather than a person, so I never went back. So I guess the question I'm asking is, what are your opinions on the Alcohol Anonymous or the Drug Anonymous? Obviously, you've been successful in doing what you're doing, and do you
So
believe that's the only way?
yes, absolutely, absolutely. And this is why I do I say this a lot on my TikTok. So and I'm glad you really brought this up because I can give you some examples of how I was. So when I was in rehab, I got through. I was at my third week. I only had one more week to go. I was doing well, and I said to one of the support workers there, I said, like, when I get out, I'm, I'm gonna go on my own. I'm gonna do my therapy. I'm gonna do walking. I'm gonna get out, get there, get the fresh air. I'm gonna get on my hobbies. I'm just gonna keep myself busy. And they said to me, Rob, whatever you do, get your meetings. Do your 90 meetings in 90 days or thereabouts. And I said, yeah, I know, but I think be all right. And they was like, just please, just listen. And bearing in mind, all the support workers were ex-drug addicts and
Mhm.
alcoholics. And it was really drummed into us, like when as soon as you get out, get to your first meeting. Um, because the idea of the meetings is is it's a good place to find your sponsor. You might not find one straight away. I still haven't found a full-time sponsor. I've still got a temporary sponsor from what I call my home group.
Okay.
Um, and then you get your sponsor. They don't you don't actually go through your 12 steps in AA,
Okay.
but you go through that with your sponsor. The idea is they're experienced, they've gone through, they might be 10 or 15 years sober, and they
Hmm.
help you with your steps to carry on up to step 12. But what the meetings do, and I think it's pretty much the same everywhere I've been because I go to several meetings around the area. I don't go to just one specific place. I go around all the dotted ones, and I even go back on a Thursday to the one at rehab up in Guildford. Um, it's listening to the people's shares. Now, I can only speak for myself, but when you get someone that's been a drug addict, so I can give you a classic example without giving too much away about his identity. There was a drug addict the other day. He was a alcoholic. He was a sex addict, and his life had hit rock bottom. He'd lost everything, and he had 20 minutes. And this is what happens a lot in the AA meetings. You'll get a 20-minute story from someone's life story.
Yeah.
and then they will tell you how they changed it around. And then it's opened up to the room, and that's when everyone's got a chance to just look at the similarities. Sorry, not the differences, the similarities, and relate and talk. And the amount of people that will just come out with stuff because that speaker has opened up, and everyone else comes out of it.
Yeah.
I come away from those meetings with always something positive, um, and it keeps me going until my next meeting. I've dropped down now to probably about 3 meetings a week. I don't feel like I need to go every day now, but I
Yeah.
know that they're there if I need them. If I need to have a drink or I feel like a drink, I can call my sponsor. I know straight away the first thing he will do is he will talk through me, but he'll go, Rob, get your ass up to a meeting now. Because they help, because you're in that environment, you're in that safe environment, you know, like we was when we was in rehab. After a while, when I came to the day to come home, I was half and half about when to come home because I felt safe there. I felt I'd made a family there, people that understood what I was going through, and that's why the meetings are so successful because you can go into a room, you can be honest, you can talk about how you feel without being judged. Whereas if you did it anywhere else, people, you feel like people would be judging you and they'd be like, oh, you're an alcoholic. Oh, you dirty scummy, blah, 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 blah. And then we know that we can go into those meetings and it's safe and we can speak. Um, and that's why it does me a lot of good. And I believe from what I've heard from other people in the meetings when they speak, that's how they feel. It's that safe, it's that place to go to. It's where they want to be around with people where we've got this illness, and there's people going there that are 25 years sober. They're still going to one or two a week.
Wow.
Um, they've not picked up a drink, but they go to hear the shares, and then they will share their story, or they will, look at similarity in that discussion. Um, so yes, and the amount of people that I met in rehab that regretted not going, that had relapsed and gone back into rehab again. Two or three people I met that I'm close with. Um, they all said in their steps, because they've obviously gone back to step one again and they've gone into rehab. I wish I would have gone to the meetings because they gave up on the meetings, and it seems to be that a lot of people that give up on those meetings end up relapsing and they end up back in rehab. Um, so that's what I've experienced. And I me personally, yeah, the meetings they do me the world of good. They really do, But I'm finding my TikTok's really helpful. I think it's that. I think it's really being around people like us, and that's like like I often say on my videos, my family, you're my family, because I feel like we're in this. We are in this together, and we've got this support network of people. I can call someone now. Someone can text me now. We're there for each other, and I think it's that feeling that you're not alone. Whereas when we was drinking, we felt very much alone. We was very much in that darkness, wasn't we?
Oh, yeah.
Um, and we've come out of it, and we realise that we're not the only ones.
I think you've just made a very valid point there, and it's something that I agree with massively. I'll give you a short story. So it was on social media actually, and some woman, I've mentioned this story, but some woman invited me into a live, and she asked me why I was holding a mental health podcast, and I said, well, it's a big thing at the moment. There's a lot of people unaliving themselves, committing suicide, especially men. Um, where I live in North Wales, again, it's one of the highest trauma rates in the UK. I know a lot of people who've took their own life over the last couple of years, and it's something that's extremely close to my heart. And I feel I bring added value to conversation when talking about mental health. And she absolutely slandered me, and I was getting like I was speechless. Honestly, I was getting called a misogynistic dirtbag who's monetizing people committing suicide, and like I've not made a penny off anything that I do, and that's not the agenda. I've spent a lot of money on equipment. Um,
Mhm.
Not that I'd ever have to explain myself to this lady, but I was being it hurt. It hit me hard in the heart because That's generally not the reason. And the reason that I mentioned that is because she said to me, "Are you a professional?" And I said, "Well, a professional in what?" And she said, "Well, mental health." And I said, "Well, I'm not a professional if you mean I haven't got no qualifications or nothing like that, but what I have got is nearly 40 years experience of going through some shit, you know? Um, and so it really, it pissed me off. So I Googled it, and the NHS and the National Institution of Psychology, they applaud peer-on-peer conversation, which is like what we're doing now. We're peers and we're just having a conversation. You're not telling me what to do. I'm not telling you what to do. Uh, we're exchanging our experiences, our past, and in turn, those things massively help. Um, so I'm happy that you said that, because I really do believe, just even if it's somebody, you know, who sat on a park bench on their own, just go and have 5 minutes and speak to them.
Mm.
There was a guy, I was driving through town. Was it yesterday or the day before? And I seen him. He had a can in his hand. I know I used to play football with him when we were younger. Been through a lot. The family's been through a lot. He's an alcoholic now. And I pulled over, got out my car, left the car door open, and just, you know, stopped him for 5 minutes, give him a hug, shook his hand, and generally, you know, I said to him, "How are you? How are you doing?" And it meant the world to the guy, you know. And he said, "You know what, Lee?" He said, "I really appreciate you coming over and just asking if he's okay." And the traffic warden tried to do me for pulling over on the side of the road. Um, but I really enjoy things like that, you know. And I'm not here to tell people what to do. I'm here to ask people if they're okay. Um,
Yeah.
and if they're not, then maybe give them some advice, or maybe go and seek help in other ways. The only people that I believe I should be speaking to are the people like you and the people like me who have overcome our adversities and overcome the really deep, dark sides of our lives, and are doing everything they can to grow and become better, you know. I believe that
Mm.
the people who are really struggling at this moment in time, I shouldn't speak to them, because if I say the wrong thing, which I'm more than likely to do, and they go off and hurt themselves, then I've got to live with that. Um, so I'm definitely not a professional. Um, I'm wondering if you could explain to me, if you're allowed. I don't know whether you're allowed or not, what the 12 steps are.
Okay, so I'm certainly no expert, but I know the 12
Okay,
steps are they basically they're a set of steps. So obviously the first one that you have, and it's the one really they say if you don't complete any of the other steps, it's about realizing your addiction to alcohol and that you're powerless.
okay,
And that's the one that they often say, like, you know, you've got to accept, you know, we've come to accept that we've got an addiction and we're powerless over, you know, whatever our drug of choice is or substance. And it's really about acceptance. It's about accepting that and you know, that's what I did. I said I needed help, you know, and then I've gone to rehab, and I've accepted the fact that I've got a problem, because there are so many people out there that will still say to someone, I haven't got a problem. So you take Liz, for example. She spent probably, what, 2 years of our relationship saying to me, I think you've got an alcohol problem. And I'm going, no, I haven't. I can handle my drink. But the chances are I was already an alcoholic. So I wasn't accepting it. You know, I was in denial. So that's the first one. I'm only going to relate up to what I've got to now. So
okay,
the other step really is like, I'm trying to think what my step two was in rehab. God, you made me think now. But yeah, the steps, it goes up to 12. Uh, they obviously, there's a lot. What puts a lot of people off of the steps is that the fact that God's mentioned a lot, and you'll hear
okay,
this so many times, that, you know, you know, God's mentioned here, there, and people go, well, I'm not religious, and they go, well, this ain't for me. So a lot of people will actually walk out of AA meetings because but it's not religious. It is very spiritual. It is a
Yeah.
spiritual thing. It's not religious. Your God is whoever you want your God to be. It can be Mickey Mouse
Yeah.
for anyone's concerned.
Okay.
You know, I believe in God, but I believe my God as well. My higher power is the
Hmm.
people of the fellowship. You
Yeah.
know, and it step two is all about letting. I think step two. About is even step three or step three. I think it's step two about really giving in and saying like like giving into your higher power and letting him take over. And people find it difficult, but and then obviously you go through the steps. Now during I think it's about step 7 or 8. It's about forgiveness, about undoing all your wrongs and getting forgiveness from people where you've upset. So, for example, for me, my steps 6 or 7 or 8 will be where I will try and make amends to Liz. You
Hmm.
know, now the funny thing is the reason why you don't do that straight away, which is one of my questions was because the chances are you're more likely to relapse in
Yeah.
those early stages of those steps. And then what's
Okay.
the point of apologizing? Because it goes around, doesn't it? Well, you said
Yeah.
sorry, it didn't mean anything because this keeps
Yeah.
happening. So
Yeah.
that's really in halfway through the steps. Um, and obviously, the very end of the step 12, you and I are both doing. You know, I've sort of jumped ahead really because that's the kind of person I am, and that's just really giving back. It's helping.
Yeah.
You know, whether that be service at the meetings, making teas and coffees.
Hmm.
Uh, step 12, becoming a sponsor. You know, giving. It's all about giving back. So I'm sort of, as I say, I've jumped ahead of myself. I'm doing step 12 of my TikToks because that makes me happy. I
Yeah.
like, I enjoy the fact, I love the fact that I can help some people
Yeah.
um, by them just watching my videos. I try to remain really, really positive all the time in my videos um, because I want people to see that how positive and how great you and how better you can be.
Feels good,
From
right? Feels
negative,
good.
yeah. Um, so yeah, but a lot of people will walk away from steps. So the NHS do another program called Smart,
Mhm.
which is it's not doing the steps. I don't know too much about it, but I know Liz is looking into it to try and give me a bit more sort of basic information, really, so I can give it out to people on TikTok. Because people say to me, "I'm not doing the steps. I'm not praying to God. I'm not doing any of that." And it doesn't matter how hard you try to say to people, and I say to people, just give it a go. Please, just give it a go because it's not what you think. You know, it's all really all about, like I said earlier on in one of your last questions, it's about being with people of your own kind and having that support.
So smart is something that I've looked into. That was when I went to therapy. That was the road that they wanted me to go down. Um, and that's when I said to you before that I've been doing training in neurolinguistics. I don't. Do you know what neurolinguistics is?
No, no, no. You have to.
Yeah. So I'll read out what smart is because I've actually got it on my phone. So smart is smart recovery is a self-management and recovery training. It's science-based program offered by the NHS. It means uh, self management and
Mm,
recovery training. That's what SMART means. So it's building and maintaining motivation through cognitive behavioral therapy, which I've done, which is CBT, which is really good.
yeah,
It deals with something like coping with urges, managing thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, living a balanced life, setting achievable goals, healthier and more fulfilling, improving areas like relationships, self care to reduce reliance on substances. Um, it differs from AA in that it doesn't involve steps, a higher power, or labels like alcoholic. Instead, it focuses on self empowerment and using
yeah,
evidence based techniques to sustain recovery. So, I'll give you a little technique that I learned myself through CBT and neuro linguistics. And I only did it the other week. And I feel good already just even thinking about it. So, through through neurolinguistics, you can train yourself to come out of a certain way of thinking. So if you've got an urge to do something, you can train yourself to come out of it. So what I did it 10 times. So I slapped myself on the shoulder and thought about something that was really funny when I was 16. That's close to me. And I did that 10 times. So then after 10, 11 times, every time I slap my shoulder, it instantly puts me into the frame of mind of thinking about what happened to me when I was 16 and I was laughing with my friend. We'd actually smoked some weed we had, and we were on the giggles. We were laughing our heads off. So it takes me back to the point where I think of my friend eating ham out of the fridge. That's what it's about. And so every time I get an urge now, I slap myself on the shoulder, and it instantly changes my mindset now to thinking back to when I was 16. So that is the sort of the basis as to what neurolinguistics is. It's changing the mindset and changing our belief system as to, so say for instance, you use the terminology, you're an alcoholic. I used to use the terminology that I was a cocaine addict. I no longer use those terminologies anymore because I feel it gives power to the title.
Mm-hmm.
I feel as though it gives you this um it brings power to the term of what you're using. So like you're saying there that you're an alcoholic, you feel like you're giving the power to that title. And that's
Yeah,
something that I
yeah.
know I don't do that no more. So that's what
Mm-hmm.
neurolinguistics is. In a nutshell, that's what it is, and it's a fantastic tool to use really for changing the brain.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds yeah, yeah. I mean, it sounds like the when when you slap and you're thinking about something when you were 16, it sounds very much like the elastic band
Oh yeah,
thing,
same thing. Same
because I
thing.
think I mean I've not tried it, but I think that's to do with it's to do with telling your brain to you know
It's the exact same thing. It can be
yeah,
so with neurolinguistics, it can be anything, like whatever's relative to you. So I done the slap on the shoulder. It could be holding a finger. It could be the elastic band. It could be touching your ear. It could be anything, whatever is relevant to you,
well
whatever. But yeah, that is the elastic band is an NLP method.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's
So I
fantastic.
guess
I'm Yeah, I will
go on.
look into the smart. I'm interested to just out of curiosity as well, and just if I can go through the because I'm sure I can go through the program and I can then see if that works for me as well.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
but and it's good to get a comparison as well to see
Yeah,
what works.
yeah,
Um, you probably seen from some of my TikToks that I get a lot of people saying to me, "I can't stop drinking. I don't know what to do." So I always say to people, like, I don't know if you've ever heard me when I say it, I say, like, I'm not going to give any medical advice because I don't know where
mm.
you are in your stages of alcoholism. And I always, the advice I always give them is just go to your GP and tell them, that you think you're an
The
alcoholic or
the
you've got a
the
drink problem.
problem is with a lot of people, we use those affirmations, which in turn create our reality. So I know a lot of people who say, I can't stop doing this or I can't stop doing that. And in some cases, the medical cases with, you'll know with alcoholics, a lot of people can't, they'll be physically ill if they don't. So I
Yeah,
understand that bit. But a lot of the time with people, we give ourselves these entrapments of false affirmations where we say, I can't do this or I can't do that. Well, a lot of the time, it's not that we can't, it's that we don't, that we won't, or we're not ready to. I used to say it all
yeah,
the time, like, oh, I can't do it, I can't do this. When in theory, I probably could have.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
just, it's having that mindset. I believe a lot of the time, unless it's a medical thing where, you physically can't stop because you're going to end up really poorly. A lot of the time, the first step is, you know, really understanding that if we want to, we can. Um, I guess my last question for you, mate, is what's the next 12 months bring for you?
Oh wow. Well, as you know, I'm hoping that obviously, the first one is to just keep remaining sober, and just carry on my journey. I'm going to carry on with my TikTok account, and doing my journey and helping people. Obviously, in the next 12 months, I'm going to be back to work. So that'd be interesting. So I'll be able to record my sort of like TikToks with, like, how I am with work and how I'm dealing with stuff. That's going to be, because I always plan to stop it. I would always
Yeah.
plan to, the day I walked out of rehab, I was just going to stop my TikTok. And it was my wife that said to me, bearing in mind she
No,
was one at the
keep
very
going.
start. Yeah, because I've got so much more to share. So, it's gonna keep evolving. You know, um, I can be at a chat to people, and go, like, I've had my first week at work. When I was at work before, everyone knew that I had suffered from work stress, and I can tell them how I'm dealing with stuff, because that's really what I'm doing. I'm giving my experience and how I'm dealing with stuff. I'm not saying to people, like we just said, like, I'm not saying you got to do this. I'm just
Yeah.
saying this is what I'm doing. It may help you. It may not.
The
Um, and
the
obviously, I've got
beauty.
my project that I'm working on with my GoFundMe as well.
Mhm.
I'm getting some interest with people. I'm just trying to get the funds together for that, so I can start doing. It's really going to be like an AA sort of meeting, but really spread over on the course of a weekend. And I'm trying to get a place so we can do that.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and get people in recovery. And get them sharing their stories and just getting people together. Yeah, the same again. It's just getting people into that safe
Yeah.
environment. And
Yeah.
people that can trust each other. And away from the hustle and bustle as well, from those
Mm.
triggers that we have.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'm going to be working on this year. Yeah,
I think you made a valid point there where you said that you were going to cancel your social media and then you kept it. It's a very good tool to keep you present as well. And let's not get it twisted here. Even though we're at the opposite end of the scale, there's always going to be that day where something will creep up and say, "Hey, I'm still here. I'm still on creeping up the back of your shoulder." So it's something, especially this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, because it keeps me present in time
yeah,
and conscious of the decisions that I'm making as well.
yeah,
Because as you'll know, with what you're doing, everything falls to pieces if you make that one choice. And I'm
yeah,
not saying it's the end of your life, but all the success you're doing at the moment,
yeah,
it sort of falls to the wayside if you were to make that choice. At the end of the day, we're only human, and a lot of people do. But I
yeah,
believe
yeah,
doing what you're doing now, it will keep you relevant, and it will also hold you accountable for your own actions, the same
yeah,
way that
yeah,
I'm doing. So, if it's something as simple as sitting with you, speaking to people on social media with what you're doing now, keep doing it. Do it forever. Just keep doing it. Don't stop,
yeah, yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I mean,
And
it's well,
no, go on, you finish.
yeah. I mean, it's just like, like I find that I don't. I've got quite a few followers. I don't want to let them down. I don't want them
Yeah,
seeing. I don't want anyone that's suffering from,
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
alcoholism see me come on and go, I've relapsed.
Yeah,
Because what does that say?
yeah,
So there is that part of me that keeps going because of that.
yeah. It's the
That I want to keep.
accountability.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
exactly.
And I guess my last question, I've got one more question. This is it. If you could sit around a dinner table with four people from the past who, it could be anybody, alive or not, who would it be? Four people to sit round a dinner table with you.
It would be my brother. It would be my nan. It would be my uncle or my granddad.
Okay? A whole family. You're the first person in 21 episodes that has answered everyone with their family.
Mm,
And I love that. Love it.
yeah.
Well, listen, mate, it's been fantastic speaking to you, Rob.
Yeah,
I
you too.
like we do it again in the future, mate. Not a problem. Keep an eye on your
Absolutely.
journey. And
Yep.
like I say, mate, it's a brand new podcast that I'm doing here. So any help that you can give me and help me sort of grow my podcast and things like that, would be
Yeah,
massively
absolutely.
appreciated.
Of course I will, mate. Of course I will. Absolutely. You're more than welcome.
Thank you.
So I'm new as well on this journey, but yeah, like I say, we've got this network of friendship and support.
Yeah,
And what is both of our outcomes really? Why are we doing this? We're doing this because I want to stop people from dying from alcoholism. You want to stop people from dying from drugs and drug overdoses. You're there for people's mental health. It's a massive, massive thing. It's as you know, I'm in health and safety, and I know the accident statistics and work-related incidents, and mental health's the top one.
yeah, yeah,
You've
yeah,
only got to look at the HSE statistics. Mental health
yeah,
is the top one.
yeah, yeah. And I
Um,
think, like you just said there, mate, this network of people that you're building, and the network that I'm building. I've said this many times. The beauty of life is the journey, the people you meet, the conversations you have, the experiences you have, the emotions you feel, the good and the bad. And again,
yeah,
I've said
yeah,
this, like Mike Tyson said after he lost his 4-year-old daughter. You know, if we want to experience life, we experience life on life's terms. We have to
no,
experience the good and the bad. Not everything can be
yeah,
beautiful all the time. Sometimes
no,
we've got to have that negative uh, scenario or bad things happen to us to experience the beauty of what life really is.
yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Um,
And
yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there.
yeah, and that's it, mate. Job done.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, mate. It's been a
It
pleasure.
has been a pleasure. I look forward to you speaking to you again in the near future, mate, and we'll pick up where your journey left off, and we'll see where
Yeah,
you are in a
yeah,
couple of months.
absolutely. I'll keep in touch anyway.
Cool. Thank you very much, mate.
Cheerio, mate.
Take it easy.